Yeah, watch this. Check this out.
Can I hear a little commotion for the dress? A little bit?
How about this? Take it
Now let's
off,
hear it for the back of the
daddy.
dress.
Oh, I love that.
Anyway, my name is
I know y'all just saw this big ass man with his big ass arms and his big ass back in that kilt in that little microsecond that we saw his little tidy whities under there. The bigger question is, at what point did his burly body and his beautiful smile become no longer masculine? Was it the kilt? Was it the backless top? Was he masculine at all? That's what we're talking about tonight. This is an episode that we are calling Toxic Masculinity Explained, and the show starts right now. What up, though? I am Jay the Gentleman. That's at JAI the Gentleman on IG and Facebook. Welcome to the Judgment Free Zone. This is a new episode of Dear Black Gay Men podcast. I want y'all let me know in the comments, how do you define masculinity? For tonight's conversation, I'm interviewing our self-proclaimed Butch Queen, who regularly delivers Butch Queen advice, and our resident straight man, whose very white voice could whisper the pants off of any one of the girls, the gays, or the zays, if you are so inclined. Please welcome David Brandyn and Louis Shackleford to the show. David, y'all there? Are y'all there?
Yeah. What's up, y'all? What's up?
Hey, how are you? I got applause. Hold on. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I have sound effects now, so you might hear some crazy shit coming out of me.
I love crazy shit.
It's life going. We were talking before the show. I'm the only single person. David Brandyn, last I checked, you are engaged. Have you been married yet?
I have not been married yet. We are still planning. Getting married is hard. Like what? There's a lot to do. There's a lot of shit to do, and we have a lot of other shit going on. So we're taking our time. We are not in a huge rush. But yes, still engaged, going strong.
I'm excited about that. Louis is married. And so how is married life going? How is the missus?
She's doing well. She's doing her thing, advancing in her career. You know, I'm just the cheerleader. So
I wouldn't mind being somebody's cheerleader one of these days. I think, one day I'll have me a little boo thing, and he and I will take cute pictures for the gram and each other's nipples randomly at the most inopportune times. Like one day that'll be my life. But until then, it'll just be, me lusting after married and engaged men who are totally out of my league. Either way, I'm here for it. Are y'all ready for this conversation tonight?
I'm ready. I want to talk about that first clip. I don't know if we did yet, but I'm ready.
We not there yet, but it's coming. Let's get into the episode. We're getting. Okay, David Brandyn. The first question is going to be for you. Did you always consider yourself masculine?
No, not at all. So my masculinity is mainly nurtured, not my nature, right? If someone is to call me masculine, it's because I trained myself to be that way. At a very young age, I was extremely feminine, extremely like one of the girls, like extremely feminine, only hung with girls. Never was around boys.
Girls.
Masculinity scared me, right? I did not like it. Like I even remember being at a football game with my dad and my uncle, and like the team won, and my uncle like screams and goes, "Yeah, yeah!" And I was like, "What is happening? Like, what? I don't like this."
But why did you say it scared you? What about masculinity scared you at a young age?
I think maybe just over masculine folks, like aggression, just a lot of aggression. I think that's what I thought about masculinity at a young age.
Okay.
But I soon realized, as I was getting bullied for being feminine, as I was like getting ridiculed and ostracized for being feminine, I soon realized I was like, oh, I have to I have to be this way in order to fit into society. So I trained myself to be more masculine. And I did that by noticing boys around me. I would see how they would sit. I would see how they walked, how they talked, how they did things. And I would mimic them and I would practice at home. I would literally practice being masculine at home. So much so that I became masculine, quote unquote masculine, and have kind of remained that way now. But because I'm so much more comfortable with myself now, I try to reclaim that feminine side of myself. I try to go back to that little boy and give him what he needed back then that I couldn't give him, you know? So now, yeah, I come across as masculine, but like I wear skirts, I dress, you know, in feminine colors. I Vogue, like I've been part of the ballroom scene, like all these things I make sure I'm intentional about because that little boy missed them and he deserved them as well.
That's I have so many follow-ups, but I want to come to you, Louis, because one thing, interestingly, I don't know if we planned it this way, but the two of you, from what I understand, are both New Yorkers.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so, Louis, you of course are a different aspect of it because you are the straight guy. So, what have you always considered yourself masculine?
You know, it's interesting listening to David because his story really mirrors mine in many
Mhm.
ways. I've never seen myself as a very masculine person. If that, I don't know, sometimes that surprises people, but
Because of the voice. I mean, many things. The voice, you are military, I think because I have a very gay definition of masculinity, you check all the boxes and you cute. So it's like,
and you know, I think me checking those boxes was something like to David's point, like I sought out. Like I feel like my masculinity is very curated, particularly when I was younger. Like I didn't have a lot of masculine role models. The only influences I had were the people in my neighborhood, and a lot of them were not very good influences. So I had to figure out what masculinity was for me or what a part of this I could portray. So a big example I always gives is football. Football was one of the things like I sought out to learn football. Like I literally remember sitting down and was like, I don't know anything about football. I'm going to sit down and watch this and learn it till I have until I learn it and have something to connect with other guys in school. And to this day, like I've developed a passion and love for football, but it's something in the back of my mind that always remembers like you didn't get this organically like other guys may have gotten it. You sought this out and had to get it for yourself. So it makes my masculinity at times, it used to feel a little bit hollow to me. And I
Mm.
used to feel like,
hollow.
yeah, because it was like I am I know I was always aware of policing to some extent of my masculinity. And I know that I have enough or I present enough to pass the policing, but still like I don't feel masculine. So what does that all mean at the end of the day?
Mm.
For you, Louis, I'll come back to you. Does not quote feeling masculine, does that diminish or does that impact feeling straight?
Mm.
You know, I've never connected the two. And a lot of this is going back to my younger self because I don't think about masculinity in the same way now as I did when I was like in my early and late teens. So, but I never questioned my sexuality in that way. So I guess I never incorporated that into my view of masculinity. It was always how do I fit in to this community of boys or men around me and
Mhm.
understanding that I didn't fit in. And I really couldn't get to the bottom of that. I mean, I know some of that was I wasn't very violent. Like I'm not a violent person. And the masculinity I saw around me was very violent. I didn't want to do a lot of harm to people, particularly women. Like I didn't see like even little things that I wouldn't call little harms, but harms that people don't take into account when they're younger, like talking of like sleeping with a girl and then telling all your boys about it. Like those were things I didn't want to do. So how do I fit into this dynamic of masculinity that I see exist around me, but I know those things that they're doing aren't intrinsically me? And so it always put me in a weird space. So I just found myself being alone a lot.
Now, I will say the interesting thing about the experience you just recounted, Louis, about like sleeping with a girl and telling all your boys about it. I did the exact opposite. Like I had me and my little stud friend in high school who absolutely never slept together. We never even saw each other naked, but we told each other, like we spread rumors about each other. Like, oh, we was Boom Bazooka Joe in behind the tree in like 8th period or whatever. Because we wanted to just appear straight, even though we were both desperately gay. Desperately gay. So, like, I am the exact opposite of that. Like, we asked each other, could you spread this rumor that we was out here fucking? So that
I love that. I mean, it sounds like y'all were protecting each other. Like,
Mhm.
you gotta do
we
what you have
were.
to do. That's good. That's kind of cool.
We were now great enough. I didn't exist in a very violent space where you like me coming out would have been met with a whole bunch of adversity. I was fortunate enough to not have that upbringing, but I didn't know that. I thought I was going to get disowned by my African daddy and, you know, put out the house at 16 years old. I didn't know what was going to happen. So we provide each other a sense of safety, even though ultimately we didn't need it. But my question for you, David, similar to Louis, but like the opposite, did this level of masculinity you were seeking out or studying, did that impact your gayness?
Yeah, it did because I think just in gay communities, in all communities, if you are quote unquote a man, and you are masculine, you are more attractive. So leaning into masculinity definitely got me more dates.
Dates with who?
You say what?
Dates with who?
With men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Is that what you mean? I never really
Yes.
dated.
Yes, that is definitely what I meant.
Okay.
Like, it'll get you more date. Because the interesting thing, the reason why this topic is so interesting to me is because my experience is so opposite. So opposite from both of those. Like, Louis, you may not know this, but David and I met each other 10, almost 15 years ago, right? And I was a little bitty skinny boy, skinny queen, because I had a high pitched voice and all the things, right? And I was 140 pounds at the time. And then the older I get, the thicker I get. The second that scale tipped over 200 pounds, then 210, then 220, the more feminine I present, the more attention I get. Now, so masculinity just is no longer a thing for me because the girls want a teddy bear. However, so like I'll get attention because you know my fingernails is painted, this voice ain't changed no matter how big the body got. All of those things, and I never once studied masculinity because eventually I could let all that shit go. That's just my experience though, because you know I'm a big ass nigga now, which I love.
I often hear, because my partner presents very feminine, right? And I often hear from other folks like, "Oh, I wish I had a relationship like that, like one masculine, one feminine." And I'm like, is that what this is? Like, oh,
They must not watch Sissy That Psyche.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, y'all don't know
baby,
the full breadth of me because, like, I could.
Y'all have a whole patent leather moment on Sissy. Like patent leather, crop, belly buttons, and nipples on display through and through.
Exactly.
But, okay. For everybody who doesn't know, Sissy That Psyche is David Brandyn's show on Wow Presents, the app. So the app and the production studio that produced RuPaul's Drag Race. Very, very exciting. So shout out to you.
Thank you.
But now the question that I have for both of you though is, do you feel does your definition of how does your definition of masculinity now differ than your definition of masculinity when you were studying football, Louis?
My definition of masculinity now is just me, to be honest with you. Like, I don't spend a lot of time trying to contemplate what's masculine and what's not. I accept that I am masculine. I accept that I'm a man, and how I present my masculinity is how it's presented, and it's masculine. So I'm really a big advocate of not policing masculinity. I'm really a big advocate of not policing how men should express themselves and express masculinity. I think that those things really do us real harm in terms of just how we present each other in the world, how we react to each other in the world, but also how we are able to embrace ourselves. So I really don't spend a lot of time thinking, is what I'm doing masculine? My first thought is, what's masculine? It's me, and I go from there.
But is that just because you don't give a shit no more?
That's
Because like
part.
you said when you was younger, you studied it because you cared about how you were received. Is it just that you don't give a shit no more and you embrace yourself as it comes?
I think I'm in the place in life where I can't be hollow in my masculinity anymore. Like I can't have an empty sense of masculinity if I'm going to move forward and do the things that I want to do in life. Like I can't have that sort of baggage on me anymore. And so I'm just letting it go and just understanding that the masculinity that I want is going to be curated by me for me. And I can't rely on anybody else's example of masculinity at this point in my life. And I honestly never should have. I should have just been myself and understood like I can create a paradigm of masculinity that fits me. And I don't have to give a shit what anybody thinks about it.
I don't know why, but hearing you say the word shit just did something for me. I mean, like I'm going to come back to the same question for you, David. But before we go to break, I do have there's a couple questions that I want to get to. Dr. Daniel Driffin asks, what are feminine colors?
I would say like pastels, pink, and all of this is just like traditional stuff. This isn't really what this is, but it's just like what it has been, right? Just lighter colors, shades of sky blue, as opposed to like black and brown and red,
boring colors,
navy blue, green, like.
Yeah, of course I have to mention Kevy Kev said, look at Jay showing off his muscles in this tight. I mean, I've been working on them. I did some push-ups before the show. But Kevy Kev also said, did David attract more masculine, feminine, or in between men being more masculine?
All of them, which is wild. Everything.
Okay, so after the break, I have some follow-up questions for that. Let's get ready to go to break. I'm looking forward to being able to ask you my follow-ups. So break. Buckle up, Buttercup, because next week we're chatting about We're chatting about controversial topic, the stigma surrounding HIV criminalization. This will be a conversation you don't want to miss. We'll be right back. I think I lead a pretty normal life. I'm a podcaster and a content creator. I'm pursuing my passions. So many of us, Black gay people, either live with a reality or a fear of HIV. Any movement toward a future where HIV is less of a part of who we are, I don't know that I can think of anything more impactful to our culture. Hit the notification bell because we're going live.
Like that's the least of my worries. The size.
Oh, I think relationships are becoming more complex.
Tuesday and Thursday every week.
Welcome to Dear Black Gay Men Live
at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Hey teammates, welcome back to Dear Black Gay Men Podcast. If you're enjoying this content, subscribe on YouTube and drop a like on this video, even if you're watching on your TV, because I know most of us, like I get the numbers at the end of the show, be like most of y'all was watching on TV because y'all got Chromecast or Apple TV or whatever. The podcast is still our bullshit-free step out of our comfort zone, and it's new every Wednesday. You can stream it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. The link to Dear Black Gay Men podcast is in the description. And I will tell you, let me just add right here. The episode coming next week is a doozy. So brace yourself. It's so good. If I do say so myself. Let's get back into the show. Louis and hold on.
There we go.
Louis, David, do y'all listen to my podcast?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
definitely do.
Or Apple. Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that because I respect y'all.
I like the solo episode. I like these too, but I like the solo one.
Because I be trying to set the girls free. I really do think that the girls need a little freedom in their life, and these conversations really help that because I think we are under the thumb of what masculinity is.
I love your analysis of relationships, like not just relationships with other people, but relationships with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you do a really good job of that, and I think your advice, even though it's geared towards Black gay men, I think it's really universal.
Oh, thank you, Louis.
For sure.
I'm just telling you the truth, Jay. Just telling you the truth.
Oh, thank you. That made my nipples hard just a little bit. But now I normally don't ask this question, but I really do got to get this one out. Like, what have you had it with? I hope I'm not catching y'all off guard, but what have you had it with in our culture? David, I'm gonna start with you. Is there something you've had it with this time?
Let me think.
I got something, and I don't know if y'all will be able to relate, but I got something.
Maybe you go first, or Louis can go, and I can think of mine.
Okay.
Where can I start?
Now, Louis, you are very much an ally to Black gay culture, but we all know you are straight. So what? But if there's something in our culture, whatever you define as our culture, what have you had it with?
I'm just done with the conversations about like what somebody brings to the table, quote unquote, and that having to just evolve around somebody's income, status, influence, like all these things that are just nonsense to me that really don't play into how somebody treats you as a partner and what kind of partner they can be to you. Like that's just, I'm done.
I when I tell you I co-sign on that to the highest order.
Same.
I think that along those lines, like doing this show, I talk to a lot of people that are in relationships. And one thing that is a through line with every successful relationship, there are probably three things that I could think of off the top of my head, but one of them is most people in good long-term relationships fucked the table. Like they don't give a damn what you bring to the table. Bring you. Are you you? Can you be you? And let me figure out how I can be with that person. Like who gives a damn about the table and what you're bringing to it? If we do it right, we'll have a totally different table if we do this relationship thing right. So who cares about what you bring to the current table? Let's throw this bitch away. This is from the Goodwill anyway.
That's right.
And it doesn't say anything about how you love me, like what you do for me. Like I've seen people talk about A$AP Rocky and Rihanna and how she married down. And I'm like, you don't know what that man does for that woman every night. Like you don't know how he encourages her, how he supports her. Like you don't know what she gets from him.
Right.
So let me stop.
About to get me riled up. David, what have you had it with?
No, I also co-signed all that. I have had it with just personally folks that claim to be monogamous. Folks that claim to be monogamous hate on my open relationship, yet cheat on their partners.
And be in your DMs. Do they be in your DMs?
Yes. This is actually, it comes from a guy I was having.
Oh my God. I really want to know who it is, but I'm not going to ask.
You will never know. No, you might.
But I want to know.
I'll send you his profile.
God, just send me a screenshot. Oh God, I promise it'll be off the record.
I truly don't care. This guy had a sex with who hated on my open relationship. So we stopped like talking. He gets a boyfriend, and then he tries to sleep with me after he gets a boyfriend, and I'm like, "Are you open now?" And he's like, "No, we're monogamous." I'm like, are
He just has
you?
no
Like
integrity.
what?
Yeah,
Like what
he just
is
has no integrity.
Yeah, and I've just seen it happen a lot of times. It's a lot of folks that are cheating are just so pro monogamy, and it's fine to be pro monogamy. Definitely do that, but also abide by the rules of monogamy if you're going to do that. So I have had it with folks that aren't doing that and that just kind of hate on my shit when their shit is just shit. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is I think that people will rubber stamp monogamy just like they rubber stamp masculinity because culture by and large says those are things that we are supposed to do. You're
Of
supposed to
course.
find one man or one woman, get with them, and it's supposed to be the two of y'all forever.
Of
And
course.
and a man is supposed to be masculine, a woman is supposed to be feminine, and that's that. And
Yep.
so we end up just subscribing to these fucked up traditional values when really neither of those works for the people involved. I think most of us are a whole bunch of, just because I get with somebody don't mean that my dick don't get hard for anybody else.
Of course. It should.
It should. If it works well, it should.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you have
But
to act on it.
it doesn't mean but I still have to honor my agreements. And if I agree to monogamy, which I would never do that, but if I agree to monogamy, then I need to be a man of my word.
Yeah.
But I just somebody
Yeah,
said, "Hey, you are feminine, honey." I know. And I love it. I love it. I'm a magnificent big spoon.
let's be clear.
Just lay up under me and you'll enjoy yourself. Y'all want to know what I've had it with?
Yes.
What is that?
I've had it with blank profiles.
Oh.
So you're on the app, but let me paint a picture. You're on the apps. This person, this anonymous image sends you, and I consider like if their profile picture is like a scenery, if it's a street lamp, like any of those to me are blank profiles, right? But they send you a message, sup, what you doing, what you want, whatever it says, right? And my first response is always pick. This is when I've had it. When I say pick and they like, sure, what you want to see? You nigga, like what the fuck? What you mean? What do I want to see? You see me, man. You remember that Tyler Perry meme? You see, does she see us? You see, like what? That's what I've had it with. Like, if you ain't got no pictures, I can get with one or two exchanges, but eventually you got to come up off the goods. Don't be in my inbox talking about what you want to see, nigga. Send me a fucking. See,
I wonder about like has this method worked on someone? I just like
apparently it does.
Who is this?
Apparently it does, because the niggas be on the apps with no fucking picture, not a picture or nothing, and then want to play dumb when you be like, send me a pic, nigga. Like I got pictures on my profile. Now, mind you, one of them got a mask on, but the others like a COVID mask, but the others got my face out. So I'm like, if you see me, I need to see you at least to the degree that I'm showing who I am. Even if it's in it. And don't send me no fucking vanishing pictures. Fuck that. Disappearing pics. Bitch, if you ain't man enough to stand on 10 toes down on who the fuck you are, don't even step to me.
I told them if it disappears, I'm gonna ask you again. So you might as well just send the picture. And that's right. That's in my profile. If you send a disappearing picture,
block, delete. I ain't got time for it. Get somebody else to do it.
Every time we chat, I'm gonna ask for that picture again. So
Dr. Driffin says I've had it with a vanishing picture.
Yeah, where's it going? Where is it going?
Where is it going? Okay, so Aaron is looking at me, giving me the eye because I'm totally off the script. But y'all ready to play a game? Let's play a game.
Yep.
He cut me off because I'm off the script and we are way over time. So tonight we're gonna play one of my favorite games on Dear Black Gay Men Podcast. It's called Real Roundup. So for tonight's game, we have combed the internet for viral moments that police or defend masculinity, and we want to hear for our guest thoughts. For everybody in the chat that is watching, let us know what your thoughts on these reels are about masculinity. Some of them are pro-masculinity, some of them are challenging masculinity, but I want to know everything that y'all got going on in your head so we can have a conversation about it. Y'all ready for the first one? David and Louis?
You good?
All right, let's go.
As a father, we gotta be more hands-on. We gotta be more hands-on with raising our kids and letting them know what's right. By the time they 16, you gotta be pushing people. You gotta be pushing. When they 15, you gotta start sending them to the movies with the girl. Because, you know, if they gonna get blinded by what they see on TV and things like that. As dads, we gotta be a part of that. Because if we let them just watch what everybody sees, they will stray that way.
Let me just send out a very deep and fervent fuck that nigga. Like, but go ahead and y'all can chime in because Boosie is trash. Like, he is the definition of trash, the highest level of trash.
Why do we need to give this man screen time? Like, why after one hit song, I have to hear from you for the rest of my life? I don't understand it. I do not understand it. I can get that regionally somebody loves him. He has a fan base. but I just why? You know, the thing that bothers me about him is that he has a platform because there are so many people that agree with him. And that's what really bothers me.
Yeah.
Is that his voice speaks to somebody that resonates with somebody, and that is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Go ahead, David, before I chime in.
Yeah, there's not much to say about this terrible ass person. He's terrible. He has pushed his kids into rape. Sorry, trigger word rape. And it's just really disgusting that he does feel this way. And Louis is right. It's so unfortunate that he is just one of many people, men and women, who feel this way, who support this message of training your young boys to deal with women. And it's just really unfortunate and disgusting. It reminds me of when I was young and my older cousins would train me at like 12, 13 to dance with girls at parties. And they would tell me, here's what you have to do. And they're like 17, 18. Here's what you got to do. Don't ask no questions. Don't talk to her. Just go up behind her and start dancing on her. And she will dance with you. And they trained me to do that because, you know, their uncles, their cousins taught them that same thing, right? So it's like this toxic masculinity, this rape culture passed down from generation to generation. And Boosie is ahead of it because he has such a, you know, huge following. It's just really unfortunate.
So let me say this, and this is sidebar, but totally related. Like, this is what baffles me about when we came up. David, I know you slightly older than me. Louis, I think you might be my age or a little younger. Either way, we all raised around the same time. And somehow or another, our parents, our cousins, our older siblings, if we have them, we're all saying the same shit. Y'all in New York, mine in Texas. They ain't had no Facebook to rant on. They didn't have no TikTok reels. Ain't no podcasts out there. They ain't had no Google. But somehow or another, we all got some of the same fucked up ass lessons. Now we also got a lot of good lessons. But somehow or another, Black culture is so pervasive isn't the word, but so ubiquitous that somehow or another, y'all in New York City, me in Dallas, Texas, my mama and them in Georgia, my other cousins in the Northwest, we are getting the same lessons as Black people. Now, there are many examples that I can think of where that is a good thing. That is the reason why Black culture is so rich. Boosie is unfortunately an example of how that went terribly awry. And I think he is probably the best example of when masculinity, air quotes around that, goes toxic. Because that motherfucker, if nothing else, is toxic. I don't know if he's masculine, but he definitely toxic.
For sure.
Okay, let's go to the next one. What's the next one?
Painting his nails is like seeing Michael Jordan in lingerie. Pause. What's up with all these dudes painting their nails nowadays? That ain't it. It's wild, LOL. So they're building a statue of Dwayne Wade in Miami because he's won 3 NBA championships, the scoring title, finals MVP, all NBA first, second, and third teams, all NBA defensive team. He's got like 2 red nails and he's getting a statue built of him in a major US city for being an exceptional professional athlete. And we're like, questioning his masculinity. If anything, as a retired NBA player in the public eye, I think it takes more guts, strength, whatever you classify as masculinity, to walk out the house with painted nails and not care what anybody has to say about it than it does to make fun of him. There's like real shit going on in the world.
Cut it right there. Cut it right there. So, thoughts on painted nails? A, for both of you, is that masculine?
I would say it is traditionally no. It's not masculine to paint your nails, but does that make you less of a person? I think what you said about, the masculine part about him being able to confidently step outside of the house, knowing other people are going to have these views about him, that's masculine. And from what I'm understanding from her, confidence is supposed to be a masculine trait. He's just confident, and we should see it as being confident rather than being masculine or feminine.
What about you,
Louis?
Louis?
Agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Louis?
Well,
can I paint your nails?
I think about why he painted his nails. And
okay.
It's like, I think about the fact that he has kids, he has daughters. And so I could see myself having a daughter, and, it's just me and my daughter, and I'll let her paint my nails. I'll let her do all these things, and I wouldn't think anything about it. And I'll punch you in the face if you tell me anything different. Yes. But that's not that's a little toxic masculine.
Warranted.
A little warranted toxicity is okay. It's like a blunt every once in a while.
But I just, it burns me up that we just make these blanket judgments about men when we see them stepping outside of these traditional notions of masculinity. And I agree, it's not traditionally masculine, but so what? Like, he is clearly a masculine man. He's accepted as being masculine, and he accepts his masculinity. Why do we have a problem with it? The other thing I will say is I think he's an interesting example of like these, like, for lack of a better term, I'll say like alpha male type figures, or like high on the totem pole of masculinity type figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always interested by these people because people like him, I remember in high school, would do the least masculine stuff. And I feel like they would always do it, maybe because they had, there were things about their sexuality that they were exploring that they didn't want to put out there. I'll admit that. Some of them probably were that way. But I believe that some of them felt like they had cornered the market on masculinity so much that they felt like they could just do whatever they want. And so because the policing, they were like in charge of the policing in many ways. So they didn't have to abide by the rules like everybody else. And they would do the gayest things that I would ever see.
Oh my God, Louis, let me tell you a story. Let me tell y'all a story real quick. So, I was born in Flint, Michigan, right? And I was in Flint until I turned 14. And the high school I went to was 95% Black. And there was this boy, his name, we'll call him Brandon. That is not his name. But Brandon was like the quarterback of the football team. He had this big, beautiful body. But Brandon was so gay. He was so gay, although he was straight. But he was so gay. He would read you down. He would read you for filth. I legitimately think he might have introduced the football team to skinny jeans back in the day. Like, he did all of these gender bending, non-traditionally masculine things. But he was so straight because he, quote, cornered the market on straight. Like, he was the quarterback of the football team. He dated the head cheerleader. Like, he was that dude. Secretly, I won't tell you what I caught him doing in the locker room, but needless to say, something wasn't right in the sauce. Something wasn't consistent in the sauce. Who he was outwardly and who he was inwardly did not always line up. But no one ever suspected him because of all these other things that he did to I don't know if it was to present masculine, but he was. I mean, ain't nobody questioning.
Right.
And
right.
I just want to make a quick comment. I don't want to insinuate that if you're stepping out of the bounds of traditional masculinity because you've cornered the market, that you're in some way gay or that your sexuality should be questioned in some way. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we see examples of men who identify as straight that when they feel so secure in their sexuality and in their masculinity, they do whatever they want. Why can't we all have that ability? Like, why can't we all have that privilege?
Right.
But I think that goes back to, and now I'm personal experience, so forgive me if I get too podcasty, but I really do believe that masculinity only becomes toxic when we think of it as something that you do. I truly believe that masculinity is something that you are. Like we use Dwayne Wade as an example. People want to make it seem as if him painting his nails is not masculine, when really the confidence that he has, who he is inside, is what makes him masculine, regardless of what color his nails are. Just like we thought, all of us on one level or another thought that playing football or playing a sport or all those things made you masculine, when really we've all grown up to realize that masculinity was in us the whole time. It's just we didn't have the language or the context to express it in an authentic way, in a way that's not empty, as Louis said. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I the more I think about it, I think about based on what you said, and I agree. But if masculinity is confidence, what is femininity? Is that not confidence? Is that the opposite, or is there an equal amount of confidence in femininity as well?
I don't ever think masculinity and femininity are mutually exclusive or each other's opposite, because both of those things live in me, just like both of those things live in all of us to varying degrees. I think it takes the same amount of confidence to be feminine, regardless of your gender, than it does to be masculine. What I think, though, is what it becomes is, how do I define that for myself? Like, to me, confidence is a masculine trait. To my sister, who is a cisgendered woman, confidence might be a feminine trait.
That's right.
And the only thing that changes is just our perspective on the thing.
That's valid.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree. I think we're made to think of masculinity and femininity as the antithesis of each other, and they don't have to be.
Yeah, I don't think anything, like, I think that the girls get so, by the girls I mean people get so caught up in giving something a name that tracks, that is culture wide. And I think that's where we all get fucked up. Anytime you try to call something that is going to apply to like all three of us equally, then that's when you get all fucked up. Nothing about our three individual experiences is similar, aside from being Black. And there are parts of culture that will say that we are varying degrees of Black, because my daddy African, but y'all New Yorkers, and Louis is light skinned, but fuck all of that. Let's get ready for a break. I need to take a long drink of my wine. Okay, y'all keep the comments coming in, because we're going to select one of the questions from the chat to ask during our burning question segment. When we get back, we've got a hot button question for our guests. Is hypermasculinity? This is toxic masculinity. Explain. We'll be right back.
What up, though? The conversations stay lit on Dear Black Gay Men podcast. Hookup, entanglement, situation, relationship, everything from dushing to dating.
A top verb, but I am not a top noun. I am a guru at first dates.
It's new every Wednesday. Subscribe now.
Hey, teammates. So before we get back to break, I'm going a little off script, Aaron. Go with me here. But after every episode, we do burning questions. Burning questions is a segment that we have later in the show, and it's one where everyone watching, can ask our guests David and Louis a question. One of the questions is going to get selected for our burning question segment, and if we do get selected, you're going to win something big. So I want everybody put a question in the comments, something that you would like to hear Louis and David's opinion about, and we'll have a conversation about it. Y'all ready? Go ahead and get them comments popping, because I'm very excited to hear what y'all want to say. I'm my nipples get a little hard thinking about whatever y'all are gonna say. So people would think that my nipples are a thing. They're not a thing.
You talk about them very often.
I talk about them so much. But they're not the thing. Like, people want to, like, when you hooking up. Well, I don't know about y'all hooking up. We ain't gonna get into your sex lives, but when you doing the things right, and people just assume that the nipples are a hot button, and they want to like lick on them and suck them. And I think I could think of 18 other places that you can put your mouth that would have a lot more impact than sucking on my nipples.
Yeah, as someone that is very wired in my nipple area, I have come to realize that everyone else does not feel the same things I will feel, right? Like,
what do you be feeling?
In a sexual sense, if you touch my nipples, I'm literally wired. So all of my nerve endings ignite. My nipples are more wired than my dick.
Really?
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Are nipples a thing for you, Louis?
Not as much. I'll admit, not as much. Not as much.
For me, it's nothing. Like, you could be sucking on my belly button. I would probably get more enjoyment out of putting your tongue in my belly button than I would my nipples. But because I have a more pronounced chest now, people just assume that it's a thing. And my best friend tells me if I get them pierced, it'll be a thing.
Since I started shaving my head, all you need to do is start. It will put me. I could be screaming at you, and you do this, and I'm just.
See. Like, when I had locks, I used to have locks down to my nipples. When I had locks, pull my hair, just pull it, just a little light tug.
Mm-hmm.
You can get my social security number if you do it right. you could get anything out of me if you just a little, like, and like, if we're in the middle of something and you get like a good handful of it with a light tug, like, oh, let me quit. But now I have hair, and now that I have hair again, it's not the same.
Not the same.
It's not the same. Because now I'll be like, this wash, like, you gonna fuck up my wash and go. I'm gonna be frizzy by the time we get done.
Don't touch my hair.
Don't touch my hair. That was a Todrick Hall song. He said that. Okay. So the question that I wanted to ask for you, David, is hyper masculinity, is it sexy in our culture as you see it? Give us some Butch Queen advice.
I do think folks love a masculine dude. We see it all the time. Mask for mask, no femme, blah, 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 blah. I do think that, we are attracted to, because growing up, and at least I'll speak for my generation, growing up, you are expelling all things feminine from yourself so you could fit in. And at the same time, we are ogling over straight guys. We're ogling over folks that we see the most, right? We didn't see as many feminine men walking around. So we are wired to think that we need to be attracted to masculinity. And I think there's even a sexuality, I think it's androsexual, when you are attracted to masculinity specifically. And I think that is a big part of our community that needs to be looked at, because it's like most of us are not that, like, and honestly never will be. We will not be that, right? So let's start embracing our more feminine men, our more feminine folks in our community, because they are there. And if you're looking for love and only want one thing that's masculine, good the fuck luck, because how you are cutting off all your shit. Like, you cutting off 8 out of 10 men,
But I hear and read on dating profiles all the time that the girls want masculine men, but they don't. They really don't. A lot of men that I encounter, and this might just be my little corner of South DeKalb in Atlanta, Georgia, right? But a lot of men that I encounter put these buzzwords out. Just like you were saying earlier, how people say that they want monogamy or they want, that people say they want a whole bunch of shit. But no,
Right.
they don't want that shit. Like when you peel back all the layers and start understanding people's desires, people don't want that shit. People don't want masculinity no more than they want monogamy, no more than they want any of these other things. People want to feel safe, or
Mhm.
they want to feel, protected, or they want to feel provided for, or they want to feel
Mhm.
heard. But I think the bigger issue is we don't feel a lot in our culture. So we call it masculine when we really want a whole bunch of other things that may or may not come in a masculine package.
Yeah, I agree with that because all those things you mentioned are traditionally masculine. So we think we want that when it's not that. We can get those things through femininity too. We can feel cared for, we can feel nurtured, we can feel provided for through femininity as well. I know I do it. Like I feel very cared for, provided for, nurtured in that way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I tell people all the time, true big dick energy is a girl that can throw an 8-counter Vogue. That's the big dick energy in our culture. If you can buck a old dirty 8-count in the middle of the club, sweaty at 3 o'clock in the morning, that motherfucker got to dig down to his ankles. Yeah, that's a totally different topic. So, Louis, I have my question for you though. You see, I don't know how I'll be coming up with these transitions, but my question for you, Louis, is how does masculinity and heterosexuality come together? You said that you hadn't put those things together before, but how in culture does that come together in your experience?
I think that traditionally masculinity has been defined by heterosexuality. And I think that's the reason why we need to divorce them as soon as possible. And I think we need to uncouple heterosexuality and masculinity. I think we need to uncouple toxic masculinity and masculinity. Like toxic masculinity to me is not feeling protected even though it's harmful for me. It's harm. Toxic masculinity is the harm. Like toxic masculinity is when masculinity is pushed to an extreme to where it becomes harmful. All the things, all the traits of masculinity that you all just elicited, being loved, being nurtured, being cared for, being protected, those things aren't toxic. Those things are some of the most masculine things. And so we need to decouple the toxic traits, the harmful traits from masculinity. And part of that is also decoupling heterosexuality and masculinity. And so I've really enjoyed working in LGBTQ communities and seeing my definition of masculinity expand beyond just what I know to be heterosexual. And I really appreciate that. And I think I'm a better man for it.
I think that it's so interesting that you say talk about being a better man for it, because in my experience, and I think David, you and I, we talked about this a little bit, but those who come from like the most marginalized in culture, in any culture, usually are the ones that make me a better person. Like I am a better man because my mother dealt with all the things that come with being a Black woman. I'm a better man because of all the people living with HIV who have poured into my life. I'm a better man because of, all the butch queens, absolutely pun intended, all the butch queens that like have made me better because they had to deal with some shit that went along with those things, along with identifying or being classified as those things. And I just find it so interesting how, on one end, people like the three of us can say that we are better because of these people, but then there's this broader culture that are trying to discard those same people for one reason or another. And I think that is probably the one aspect of being a Black same gender loving man in this country that makes me sad is like my life would not be nearly as dope without the voguing, 8 counting, drag wearing, butch queens who may or may not be living with HIV, who were raised by a single mom, and all the things that make people small in our culture have helped me become big, figuratively at least.
Yeah,
that's the part that hurts my feelings a little bit about masculinity and our addiction to these kind of traditional norms in Black queer culture.
Yeah, I agree. And as you were talking, this can go on forever, but I'll try to keep it short. As you were talking, I was thinking about how masculinity. I wonder, it is a construct, right? And is masculinity almost like whiteness? Like, is that where that came from? Like these traditional roles, these traditional attributes. I mean, most of these things came from whiteness. Like, even I don't know. It's just a thought I just had. So I'm now kind of seeing where it is coming from.
Yes.
Right.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Louis.
I think to your point, it comes from whiteness, white supremacy, and patriarchy.
Yeah.
And we always have to remember that. Like, that's the part, that's like the invisible hand that guides toxic masculinity is patriarchy. And patriarchy is always centering the masculine, or really males. In the case of the United States, it's white males.
That's right.
And so, like, I think just having the conversation that we had earlier, how femininity and masculinity are not opposites, starts to detangle some of that, because we put masculinity at the center of the universe and everything is beholden to masculinity. Like, that is when you start to get that toxicity, I believe. Yeah. And so that's when you start to dig into patriarchy. Yeah. And so really creating a plane where masculinity and femininity can sit as equals, and allowing people to move between these spaces as they will. I mean, I think that serves all of us and that betters all of us.
Agreed.
Balance. It's balance. Mm-hmm. It's got to be balance. I think that's a good place to take a break. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Did you know that there are more than 38.4 million people living with HIV globally? Or that 13% of people who have HIV in the US don't know it? Did you know that there are HIV vaccine clinical trials throughout the US to find a vaccine that can stop HIV? Or that they need volunteers? Learn more about how you can help at helpendhiv.org.
Okay. Not that. Welcome back, teammates. My bad. I'm all discombobulated from that last comment that we had. But welcome back, teammates. Dear Black Gay Men Podcast. This is our new segment that we're calling Burning Questions. Burning Questions. This is our time to hear from you, our viewers. Chiago, I hope he's in here. Chiago has picked the best question from the chat, and now myself and the guests will answer it. Chiago, hit it. We all discombobulated, y'all. Is it coming? Is it coming? This is crazy.
We did it.
We'll figure it out. This says, how does toxic masculinity influence societal expectations around career choices, hobbies, and personal interests, limiting individual freedom and expression? Real quick sidebar. There have been so much chatter in the chat box about, is this the Hope Giselle? And she has confirmed this is the Giselle watching the show. So I just want to throw that out there. The Hope Giselle is asking this question. How does toxic masculinity influence societal expectations around career choices, hobbies, and personal interests, limiting individual freedom and expression? Now, that's a big question, Hope. I hope you understand that. That's a big question. But let's break it down while David is getting good. We have
I'm
a lot.
back.
But how does toxic masculinity influence societal expectations? Let's start there, Louis. I'll start with you. How do you think toxic masculinity influences societal expectations?
So I want to say thank you to the Hope Giselle for asking this question. Hope only asks big questions. So
I would tell you, before you answer though, let me just say, as much as I'm trying to host here, I am totally fanning out about this question from the Hope Giselle. But go ahead.
I think for the reasons I talked about, if you think about patriarchy, let's just put it to patriarchy. We're not even going to get into white supremacy. But you think about patriarchy being a driving force of toxic masculinity, then it becomes very clear to see how toxic masculinity affects every area of our lives, because we have to deal with toxic masculinity as children. We have to deal with toxic masculinity when we're engaging with other boys as we're growing up. We have to deal with it in the workspaces and how we're being policed as masculine, particularly if you're in a corporate space. How you present. I can say, I'm thinking if my mom is watching this because I want to talk about her. She watched one of your shows before.
My mom is watching this, so there's that. If that makes you feel any better.
Well, my mom watched me on your podcast before, and she was like, "I think that man is hitting on you." And
she was right.
So my name is Louis Shackleford, and that's not an accident. My mom named me this because she said that when somebody saw my name, she didn't want them to know that I was Black, and for me not to have opportunities just because my name just because they see my name. So, when you talk about how patriarchy, toxic masculinity, white supremacy affects our lives, I mean, my name is a product of some of these forces that underpin my life. So even before I was a person, these forces were conspiring to influence my life before I even could think, could breathe, could actualize in any form of life. It had a hand in even what I was going to be named. So I think it really is deep, and it goes to every part of our life. And so it's something that we always have to be mindful of, and we always have to question. I don't question if racism exists in people. It's more about where does it exist? Because we are so inundated in racism, we are so inundated in patriarchy and toxic masculinity. It's less about saying, am I toxic? And more about saying, where are the areas where I may still have some sense of toxic masculinity? That's being real.
So, David, I wanna pivot inside this same question for you, because I think different than Louis, you and I have experience about how masculinity affects same gender interests. And so, how do you think toxic masculinity influences personal interests and attractions in our culture? I think we've touched on that a little bit in this episode, but kind of dive a little deeper for me.
Yeah. This is first of all, Hope Giselle. Oh my God. When I was originally thinking about the question, I was thinking about just the expectations that were put on me growing up. And I was going through each one, like career choices. Like I remember thinking about, like, my mom's a nurse, right? And thinking like, maybe I want to do that someday, but being expected to not become a nurse, but become a doctor because that is the masculine thing to do. Hobbies. I think about.
Are you African?
Say it again. Am I
Are
African?
you African?
I am 28% Nigerian as per
as per
23andMe.
I asked because in African culture, you're either a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, or a disappointment. So
yes, right. Yeah, no, I didn't have that.
I'm very African. So there's that.
I had very chill African American parents. They just wanted me to do something.
Got it.
And I look at hobbies and I think about how when I was younger, there was an ice skating rink near me, and you could rent skates, right? And all the boys rented hockey skates, all the girls rented figure skates, right? So I could never figure skate the way I wanted to. That changed last year when I took figure skating lessons, and it was great. And then personal interests, again, colors that I could wear, clothes that I could wear. Me really being into Barbies at a young age and feeling like I couldn't do that. I had to pick the G.I. Joes, right? All these things limit my individual expression and my freedom, and they make you a very cognizant person of everything going on around you, and it makes you very closeted and tight, right? It makes you just so like conscious of every single thing, and when you're moving through the world like that, you really can't flow through the world because you're so aware of what everyone else thinks of you and trying to fit into this box. So luckily I was able to break out of that box, but a lot of that stuff still, comes up for me.
I think it's so interesting because I think about like the kind in my head podcaster. So my mind goes to dating. And in my head, I'm thinking when I come home from a long day of filming or doing whatever I got to do, the last thing I want to be met with is strong masculine energy. Like I want somebody to rub my leg and have something cooking that's smothered in gravy, homemade gravy if I can, that took a cast iron skillet to make. Like, I want someone to, small spoon me on the sofa while we, drift off into some Netflix series. The last thing that I actually want, and maybe I'm an anomaly, but the last thing I actually want is somebody who is, hard at the end of a day. I think even it is a man, but I want that softness. And I wonder how many of us single girls on these apps or in culture are missing out because our mind just doesn't allow us to value the softness in another man so that we can, find the things that our hearts actually desire. And I think there is a lot of sacrifice that comes with adhering to these very closed-minded or stereotypical versions of masculinity and femininity. And unfortunately, I really think the girls don't know what they don't know. The girls don't know what it's like to be actually nurtured or actually heard or actually loved or actually affirmed or actually encouraged. All these feminine qualities. The girls don't know what it feels like to have that. And so they think what they really want to be is bossed around and told what to do and with this hard man who doesn't feel.
Yeah. Ooh,
and I'm like, girl, that stank.
What a life. What a life that is.
I feel bad for them. Like, just for clarity, give me a butch queen. No offense, Louis, because I know you know my man crush, but give me a butch queen any day.
Speak you all day.
Any day of the week. I will be the one out there picking up your money after your drag show. I will be the one out there wiping your brow when you voguing in the club. I'll be the one out there fighting the judges when they chop you. Like, I will be the one loud and wrong for my butch queen ass nigga that is just living my best life, because again, I prefer my men with a whole lot of sugar in their tank. But that's just me.
It's so interesting to me to hear you say that, because to me, I'm like, why can't a masculine person do all those things for you? I've seen, for example, my wife's dad. My wife has a very good relationship with her father, like old school Jamaican man. And he's accepted to be the best cook. He was the one who nurtured her when he grew up. He tells stories about braiding her hair, when doing her hair when she was younger, and she talks about how she learned things like cooking and nurturing from him. Yeah. So, I think sometimes we need to expand our thoughts around what masculinity can be, and really embracing that masculinity is not always hard. Like masculinity can be nurturing, can be supportive, it can be soft. I mean, that's how I see it. Like I think there can be a softness to masculinity. Because I can think of a man I can see a man that is very, very masculine doing all those things for you.
Give him my number. I don't mind.
And I have seen that. And I think it goes back to what we were saying about the qualities. Like, if we're just seeking certain qualities, let's seek that. Like, don't put those qualities under a box, under a title. Just seek the quality. You want someone caring? Find someone caring, and fuck if they masculine, feminine, or in between. Just find someone that's caring. That's it.
I think I'm more of that mind. See, because no, let me say, I think I'm a synthesis of the two. If you are all these qualities, whatever those qualities are, encouraging, caring, nurturing, whatever, and you call that masculine, if that is masculine for you, I absolutely accept that. I don't deny it. I won't challenge it. If that is your version of masculinity. Now, if person B, though, calls those things femininity, and they live, and that is from a authentic place, then I respect that as well. But I don't think that the older I get, the more of myself I become, the more I realize I don't give a shit about what you call it. Just rub my booty a little bit.
Period.
That's it. Like, you want to call that you being dominant or sub or mask or I don't give a shit. Just rub it. Like, it's big for a reason.
We are definitely a culture obsessed with titles and boxes, and sometimes that makes us feel better, and sometimes they are necessary, but not no. Yes.
Now I will say that first, I could talk about this all night, but we are over time. So let's get ready. Thank you so much. Hope Giselle, you have won a Dear Black Gay Men snapback. You can DM us at Dear Black Gay Men on IG to claim your snapback, because they're so dope. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. Okay, we will be right back.
Get in the conversation.
This comment says, I did a good job. It's time for a congratulatory ejaculation session.
Chat live on the show and get exclusive content.
The bottoms are going to eat me up for this in the chat.
Join the Dear Black Gay Men Insiders group on Facebook.
Oh my God. So the show gets crazy every single week. I want to appreciate my guests, David Brandyn and Louis Shackleford. You can connect with either of them on IG. Links to their socials is in the description. The other day, the team put me in full makeup to shoot the thumbnail for this episode. You'll have to see it on YouTube tomorrow in order to see the full Geisha regalia. But they had me in lashes and more makeup than I could imagine. And I thought that it was going to make me uncomfortable because, I'm already Queenie. I got this high pitch ass voice. I thought it was going to be very, very uncomfortable. Interestingly enough, I have never felt so powerful in my life. I was somewhere between I wish a bitch would and bend over and take this dick. Eyelashes and all. I had created this story in my head that said makeup is femme. Therefore, people who wear makeup must be femme. I've done the same thing with painted nails, like we talked about it earlier in the show, or tight clothes, or skinny jeans, or all the things, right? But all around us, we challenge those norms every day. Niggas will paint their nails because it feels good, or they'll wear makeup because it feels good, or they'll Vogue like David was talking about, or they'll throw a nasty 8 count, or they'll sag, or whatever else because it feels good. So if anything that you take away from this episode about masculinity and how it can be toxic, it's, dear Black gay men, do and look for what feels good. That was our show. I am Jay the Gentleman. That's at JAI the Gentleman on IG and Facebook. If this episode made you feel a little more dope, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the video, and share it with someone who needs a dopeness reminder. Dear Black Gay Men podcast is new every Wednesday. You can stream it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And Dear Black Gay Men Live goes live every Thursday. So follow at Dear Black Gay Men on social so you never miss a thing. I am Jay the Gentleman. This has been Dear Black Gay Men Podcast, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.